one general educator, at least one special educator, a representative LEA, we'll talk about that in a minute, when the student, when appropriate, and others involved in the child's care who are knowledgeable about it. The law says that parents have to be involved, and the law says you cannot make a decision without parental consent, ultimately. In other words, you can't just sit down as a bunch of teachers and say, you know what, this is what we think Johnny needs, and we're going to do this. The parent has to be involved to provide feedback and to provide consent. You also cannot have a meeting without an LEA, LEA being the representative of local education agency. The reason for that is as follows. There were many, many times where parents would get together with the teachers, and the teachers would say, yeah, we need to do this, we need to have Johnny have this, we need to have this book, whatever, right? All these resources. But you know what? We don't know if the district would authorize this. We don't have any way of knowing if the funds are available. Two illegal things. One, nobody should be talking about funds because that's not appropriate under IDEA. And B, there's got to be somebody in that team who can authorize at that moment. The LEA has full authority to do for the child, to authorize for the child all necessary services and funds, so that those services and funds aren't delayed because there's no LEA available. This used to be a trick they used to pull. Well, we don't have an LEA available for another month or so. Not acceptable. So the law now requires that every meeting, there is one individual who is identified as the LEA, and that person has full authority of the district to expend funds and authorize services for that. Yes?
These are all federal laws, not state, right?
They're all federal laws, but every state has to have regulations similar to or better than. New Hampshire's actually regulations are slightly above the demands of the federal regulations. This is minimum federal regulations.
And when did this come about?
Originally 1976, 94-142 public. Before that was Section 504, which we'll talk about later. So team members meet, develop an IEP, and IEPs are good for 1 year from the date of issue. So your goals and objectives have to match up for a year. The problem is sometimes the IEP is written in March. So your goals and objectives for this school year are different than what they will be for the next grade. So it's oftentimes important to get that IEP reviewed at the beginning of the following year if it doesn't extend for a full academic. So the IEP will be adopted once the team meets consensus. Now, let's say an IEP is accepted, right? This actually happened the other day. Got a call from a parent that says the IEP allowed for one-on-one math pre-tutoring half-hour a day for this kid who's very anxious, very distractible, therefore he really needs to be pre-taught what's in the class. So when he goes to class, he's kind of more able to absorb this stuff. And then within 3 months, the team came to them and said, you know what, I think we're better doing this with 3 or 4 other students in the class, so we want to do a group tutoring. They wanted to change the IEP. And the parents didn't want to do that. And rightfully so, they disagreed with that. If there's a pre-approved IEP and a change comes about, and a parent or the team does not agree with that change, while it is being disputed, the existing IEP is enforced. That's called a stay put provision. Everything about an IEP and a placement stays until the issue is resolved and changes are made official. So what I advise them to do is say, we officially disagree with this, which puts the district in the position of having to continue to provide the one-on-one until this is resolved through this. And that's what. The IEP is signed. It's the responsibility of the IEP team to ensure the IEP is being implemented. Now, here's an interesting idea. When it says the IEP team, that typically includes the parents, but you can't blame the parents for not following up on the IEP's progress. In other words, if the IEP isn't being followed and the parent has somehow missed it, and then the year says, why haven't you followed the IEP? You can't say, well, you were part of the team, you have a responsibility to follow that too, so you didn't, too bad. Can't do that. You document the progress. If the IEP is necessary to be altered, it can be done so, et cetera, et cetera.
How would a parent kind of keep track of the progress of the IEP? Do they have
Usually in the IEP, there is a measurement frequency, so you either meet quarterly or you see quarterly report on these goals and objectives. Remember, everything's goals and objectives out, so, and the progress is charted out quarterly, so you want to have evidence, and that's a very good question. Sometimes if the evidence that's provided is not documented, the child doesn't know. It cannot be on a teacher say so. Johnny's doing great. Really? How? What's Johnny doing that's great?
So the parent would receive these quarterly or whatever updates.
Yep. Or more frequent, sometimes weekly. Okay. But if they don't, then it is the parent's responsibility at that point to say, what the heck's going on?
Once the student's IEP is over with a year, they don't go through the whole reevaluation process again. They just get a new
No.
IEP, correct?
The reevaluation process is every 3 years.
Okay.
Okay. So the timelines on these, and I'm going to go over here. So from when you actually make the referral, we're going to get rid of that. And from the referral to disposition is 15 days. If there's a decision to evaluate, the district has 30 days to evaluate. Once the evaluation is made and you have a condition that requires an IEP, you have 30 days to develop an IEP, and then you have 30 days to have a placement. We'll talk about placement in a minute. So altogether, from the time you say, I have a concern about this child, technically, at sort of a prescribed time frame, you have 105 days. That's a little, maybe about 3.5 months, right? So if you do this in October, over here, if everything goes well, if nothing goes wrong, if you don't need additional time, if you don't, if the kid shows up for any evaluation session, et cetera, October, November, December, into January, right? So January 15 is actually when you're on and running around, getting your services. That's still quite a long time. Now, you know what the average is on this? 300 days.
And that's because like they miss meetings or
They miss meetings, parents don't show up to the meeting, the school psychologist who was supposed to do the evaluation on Thursday is out sick and he's got other people to take care of, so that gets postponed for a week. You name it. Now you can get an extension from the parents to make sure that you have some time legally time frame. But if you don't follow these lines, even if you meet all the child's needs, the parents can actually go to the district and file suit against you. Can go to the Department of Education and file a complaint against you because you have not provided them with faith. Faith being free and appropriate public education, which means these timelines happen.
Is there any way to expedite it? Like if the parents are
Yes.
really concerned?
Yes. There are times when you expedite this process. For instance, a child has now suddenly brought a gun to school. Oops. And the parents are running around thinking, this is the last straw. This kid has been having a lot of problems for a long time. Nobody paid any attention to it. We need an evaluation now. They can go to the Department of Education, seek an expedited hearing, and get an evaluation done right away. If the school district cannot do the evaluation, or does an evaluation, the parents disagree with its outcome, the parents are entitled to what's called an independent evaluation at the district expense. So they can come, somebody like me, I can do the evaluation and send the bill to the district. So they wouldn't have to be burdened by that. Or they can pay me and then seek reimbursement to the district, but they have to notify the district of what they're doing.
So how much time would it take for An
For an
outside,
expedited
yeah.
Oh, for an outside, that's actually hard to do. Because A, there aren't too many people who do this stuff, and B, all of us are busy, so once we get an evaluation, before, I mean, if I get an expedited one, if I know this is an urgent matter,
Yeah.
I can probably do it within a week and a half, 2 weeks tops.
Okay.
But usually it's a 6-month wait.
So, I mean, I guess what I don't understand is why would it take someone, like, why would there need an expedited IEP? Are things not caught early on, or is it just people?
I'm not laughing at you, but
Yeah.
I've seen so many cases where the kid was evaluated to have a learning disability in 12th grade.
But,
12th grade, right?
Yeah.
Now, learning disabilities, short of somebody bashing you on the head with a hammer,
you would have it.
you would have it for a long time. This isn't something that sort of suddenly emerges.
Yeah.
We have an enormous amount of neglect around our schools in terms of who gets picked up to do what. Right? So yeah, we do see a lot of people who have had these conditions going on
They're
and
just
on
like
and on
falling
and
through the
on. And they're
cracks.
just falling through the cracks. We have kids with discipline problems who have emotional disabilities, but they keep getting kicked out of school. Nobody evaluates them. Parents don't know what to do. And so over time, by the time the thing gets really serious,
Yeah.
people have missed a lot of signs and haven't done the evaluation.
And expedited also might take place when the parents have been put off, and somebody has nothing, writes a letter and says, you know what,
Right.
how do you deal with this when I'm calling the attorneys? And then that's when the school gets on board.
Yeah, then they get on board. But yeah, usually it means there's been a delay in identification. People have missed the boat. And you just go through some of this. And every 3 years, the law says you must to do a reevaluation. So once you identify a child as having a disability, every 3 years you have to reevaluate to make sure that things haven't changed substantially, that you need to, one way or the other, change them. Now, there are times where kids are discharged from special education because their needs no longer require special education, but there are times that their needs have changed and other things have been added to it. So you can be a learning disabled child and things have gone south and you've now developed an emotional disability to your life. It's
So
terrible.
is that when they mainstream them, or is that because
Like when they're off, when they're discharged?
yeah.
No, all that means is that they could be even mainstream all along with services. They just
Yeah.
no longer get specialized instruction. They just go to the classroom and do their own thing. Sometimes there are accommodations that, extended time, minimal classroom, sit in the front, those kinds of things. We'll
Yeah.
talk about accommodations in a few minutes. But generally speaking, then, this is the process. So at reevaluation time, you'll kind of back up here. You're saying, do we need to change the IEP? Is there any substantial notice of anything that we need to change? Once a child is discharged, then they're not in any of this. They have no protection. All right. Okay, that's it for this one. All right, why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll deal with the rest of this. What time is it?